Get in, lads. The U.S. men's national team has just released their official roster for the September international window. I'm here to give you guys my initial reaction. We got a lot to talk about, a lot of changes, particularly in the goalkeepers and defense. Before I get into it, though, we did do reactions for the Mexico call-ups and Jamaica call-ups. So if you guys are interested in watching those, I'll leave the links in the description down below. And then, of course, make sure you subscribe to the Again Football podcast if you want more USA content or CONCACAF content. We have a lot more scheduled and planned over the next coming weeks and the next couple years up until the World Cup, so make sure to subscribe now. For those of you that don't know, I'm going to read out the entire detailed roster list one by one, just so you guys get a good grasp of who's going to be called up for the USA team. I'll put it on the side of myself right here too, so you can read it off. We're going to start with the goalkeepers. 4 of them were called up. We got Ethan Horvath, Diego Kukin, Patrick Schulte, and Matt Turner. In defense, we got Austin Trusty, Marlon Fossey, Christopher Lund, Mark McKenzie, Tim Ream, Chris Richards, Joe Scally, and Caleb Wiley. In midfield, there's Johnny Cardoso, Luca De La Torre, Aiden Morris, Yunus Musa, Giovanni Reina, and Malik Tillman. And then 6 forwards, we got Brendan Aronson, Falarin Balogun, Ricardo Pepi, Christian Pulisic, Josh Sargent, and Haji Wright. To make it easier for you guys, I'm going to go by position. So I'm going to start with the goalkeepers. Like I said, 4 goalkeepers brought up, and an interesting mix of goalkeepers for sure. The most notable name that is included in here is Diego Kukin, which is one of the top goalkeeper prospects in the entire U.S. system. And even the Barcelona system, they have said that they view him as the next like Ter Stegen for them. So he's going to be a big key goalkeeper, not only in USA football, but in world football moving forward, hopefully throughout the world over the course of his career. So him being included here is really good, but at the same time, him being included really shines light on the fact that Gaga Slonina was not included, who is arguably the number 1 goalkeeper prospect in the USA as of right now, at least. He's had a really good start to the season at Barnsley in League One, but as a result, he wasn't called up, or we don't know if he was called up, and maybe Barnsley rejected it. Or I have also heard that they're supposed to release the players if they're called up, even though it's not an official window for League One. But I would have liked him to be here over maybe Ethan Horvath. If I were to drop one player, it would be Ethan Horvath. In general, though, the goalkeeper system, the goalkeeper pool that we have is very lackluster. And the fact that 2 goalkeeper names are being mentioned and one of them is being in here, are youth goalkeeper names in Diego Kukin, is really a really good sign for what's to come for the future. Obviously, we don't have Mauricio Pochettino in yet. We do have a interim manager, but even then, the USSF is kind of saying that the goalkeeper situation is very wide open. There is no number 1 or number 2, and as a result, it gives all these players, something to play for. When they're not with the USA, with their clubs, it gives them a reason to be included in this team. And Diego Kukin being here really shows the older guys, and Ethan Horvath and Matt Turner, that their spot is at stake, that the new guard will come in to replace the old guard very, very soon. And that's definitely a very good sign. It really shows that, like I said, it's very open. The tryouts are there for the goalkeeper spot, because I don't think there is a clear number 1. I do think Matt Turner was the number 1 over the last maybe 2 or 3 years. But since then, he hasn't really been given game time at Nottingham Forest. With the USMNT, he hasn't been the greatest thing in the world. If you think about the game against Jamaica where they almost lost 1-0, I do enjoy that he is not the number 1. I do really hope that Diego Kukin does get game time. I think that game against New Zealand would be really, really good for him to at least show what he can do, because it's a very weak opponent. I don't think you need to play our best team there. I would like to see him at least get a half in for the USMNT. Patrick Schulte, I'm okay with him being involved in it. I don't think he'll be the number 1 anytime soon. I don't think he should be. He's been very, very solid for the Columbus Crew in the MLS, but I don't know. There are other players that are in the mix that I would put ahead of him. And if I were to prioritize something with the goalkeeper pool, it would be the youth, which is unfortunate for him because I do think he's a good goalkeeper, but there just are better. Personally speaking, I wouldn't mind seeing him get another half, like I said, for Diego Kukin against maybe New Zealand as well. But I prefer the youth to get more game time over him, which does suck. And if the youth weren't there, I still would prefer Matt Turner a little bit, but I hope he gets a little bit of opportunity. Maybe. I don't know. I really don't know if he's going to get one, but I do kind of hope he does. Now, moving on to defenders, there are also some differences here in comparison to the last few camps, which I do like a lot. In particular, the inclusion of Marlon Fossey is a really big deal. He has started the season off really, really well with Standard Liège in Belgium. So his name being here is really, really promising to see, especially because Serginho Dest is still hurt. We only really have Joe Scally, and behind him was Shaq Moore, and I think the majority of USMNT fans did not want Shaq Moore in or around the USMNT, so him not being here is really good. When a player like Marlon Fossey, even like players like I think Richie Ledesma for PSV has been really, really good at that right back spot and should be looked at for future, maybe the October international window. But Marlon Fossey being here in general is a really good sign that we're still trying to get away from that entire MLS quota that we pretty much have set ourselves. So I like his inclusion a lot. Another name that isn't here is Cameron Carter-Vickers, who I personally really like. Unfortunately, he doesn't do that well for the USMNT typically, but maybe that'll change. He is hurt, so that's why he is not here. Caleb Wiley being here is also a really good sign that he wasn't just, reduced to a youth team role. I do think he is a very high potential player on that left back spot, especially because Anthony Robinson is not here. If you guys haven't noticed, he's not hurt or anything. There's nothing wrong between him and the Federation or anything. He just has a really big season ahead of him. I know he's just being rested and opted not to join with the USMNT, which is okay. I do think he might be a part of that October one, especially because it's a big game against Mexico. In Mexico, I wouldn't be surprised if he is involved in the squad then. But as a result, Caleb Wiley is here, and I do think he should be starting. Christopher Lund is also in that left back spot, so it's a toss up between any one of them. I wouldn't mind either one starting. I think both should get a game to themselves in this international window. Them being here is a really good sign for that left back side, and I really want to see, in the event that Anthony Robinson isn't present for future important games, I really want to see that left back spot is still very capable of providing something to the team in the way that Anthony Robinson is. Obviously, he's the best left back. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think you can expect anyone else to provide what he does, but him being here or him not being here is a really good sign to see the youth players get a chance, especially Caleb Wiley. Like I said, you never know if Anthony Robinson might be hurt for, let's say, the Nations League semifinals and finals, or even the World Cup or Gold Cup or whatnot. So you have to be sure that the left back spot is still somewhat capable of providing on this scale, at this level, and this is the perfect opportunity for them to do so. Austin Trusty is involved in the team as well, and that's a little bit of a toss-up. I mean, he's pretty much on the fringes of the team consistently, which I disagree with. I think he should be involved no matter what every single season, especially when players like Tim Ream are kind of getting older. I do think Austin Trusty deserves a spot with the team. He was a part of the Sheffield United team last year in the Premier League that got relegated, which was unfortunate, but I don't really think it was fully down to him. He just moved to Celtic to play alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers in Scotland. So I do like that he's here. I do hope he gets opportunities over the likes of Chris Richards and Tim Ream and whatnot. I do think he deserves to get some game time, and I would very much like to see it. In general, though, the midfield and attack is pretty similar. At least there are a few changes in the call-ups, but the starters are going to be very similar to what we typically know and see from the USMNT. The biggest change in the midfield, at least, is Aiden Morris. I do think he's a really good player, and I do think him being in the MLS plagued his chances at the USMNT. But because he moved to England and has had a really good start for Middlesbrough, I do think he deserves a spot here. I'm glad that he was included. I hope he gets some game time, but I don't see him starting over the likes of Yildiz Musa, Gio Reyna, and Cardoso. I put those three ahead of him for sure. Weston McKennie isn't here, so I do think Aiden Morris has a different chance maybe to impress here, which I think he deserves. I don't think he'll get one in October when those games come around, so right now is a good opportunity for him to be involved. Luca De La Torre is interesting too. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to be with the USA team, but I would have rather preferred his spot to go to another young player, another young true midfielder that maybe impressed, the Olympics or whatnot. There's definitely more that goes into that. I know, I would have much preferred Tanner Tessman, but he has not had the biggest preseason. He's not the most prepared for games already because he did just move to Lyon from Venezia. So I would have preferred to see other players, but it's okay. Luca De La Torre, I'm not the most upset at. I don't know if he's going to get any game time. I don't think he will, to be honest. Maybe if we're, absolutely destroying New Zealand, maybe he comes in. And then moving on into the attack, obviously the biggest name that isn't here is Timothy Weah, and that's just because he is currently injured. I think he got hurt the first game for Juventus in the Serie A, I'm pretty sure. So he is not here. As a result, the likes of Ricardo Pepi is here, Brendan Aronson, and Josh Sargent. I'm okay with Sargent. I'm okay with Pepi. Brendan Aronson is the only one that I'm kind of iffy on. I do think he has a really high potential to be an important player for the USMNT, but whenever he's given opportunities, he isn't the best player for us and for his club teams, unfortunately. I would have preferred to see him a little bit on the edge, on the fringes of this team. Maybe you give it to somebody else in the midfield or attack that could, prove themselves, like a Kevin Paredes, for example. So I don't know. I don't know with him. I'm not the most upset that he's here. I would have preferred it for somebody else. I would have shown that Brendan Aronson doesn't have a for sure place in the squad, because I don't think he does. I don't think he's a lock-in the same way that Pulisic, McKennie, those kind of players are in the USMNT. But he has been giving opportunities by the USA, and I don't know if I fully agree with it, but he is here. Josh Sargent, I really like him as a striker, as a player. I do think he has a very good case to be the number one striker for the USMNT, but he also has to deal with Haji Wright. He does have to deal with Folarin Balogun, who I would say is the number one right now and does do a really good job for the USMNT. But I do hope that Josh Sargent gets enough minutes in this international window because he has been plagued with injuries over the past year or so with Norwich City. He hasn't really been able to kick it into full gear, even though that when he does get game time, I mean, if he played the whole season, he could have been the top scorer in the championship. I do enjoy the fact that he's here. It is a good sign for the strike force. Ricardo Pepi, I'm not the most upset at. He probably is the third best striker so with the USMNT. I do like the fact that Jesus Ferreira isn't here and instead is Ricardo Pepi. So a lot of good signs for the attack. Nothing insanely different, but that is just the nature of the attack for the USMNT. It's not going to change so much over the next couple of years up until the World Cup. We have a pretty good attack core. It's not the most upsetting thing in the world, which is why if you are watching these games, I would heavily focus on the keeper situation and the defenders. Those are the big two things with this team, at least for the September transfer window, September international window that you guys should pay attention to. Otherwise, not the biggest thing. One thing is also this isn't Pochettino's team yet. They are still negotiating his contract with him and with Chelsea, so he hasn't been able to have any impact on the USMNT as far as we know. Maybe there was some input from him for this transfer or international window. I don't think so. This is a different manager. You are going to see a different style of play probably. Definitely take it with a grain of salt. It's going to be interesting. That game against Canada is also going to be really, really fun, but I wouldn't put too much emphasis on it as much as it maybe should have been, unfortunately. Definitely more of a game for Canada to look at than the USMNT, but I say that just because it's not Pochettino's team yet. It's not how the team's going to look, even in October probably. So still going to be some good games. Make sure to watch those if you can. We might do a preview / reaction video after those games and before those games. So if you are interested in that, make sure to leave a like down below and then subscribe to the Go Football Podcast. Other than that, we're going to have a lot of more CONCACAF content over the next couple of weeks because of the international window and October and even between them and whatnot. So make sure to subscribe for all those. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your comments down below in the comment section. And yeah, that's it for me, guys. Take it easy.